Blessings in Jesus' name. I was thinking that I might try and acquire a guitar or a ukulele. Ukulele is like, it's sort of, the body of the guitar is the size of a ukulele, but it has 6 strings like a guitar. I played the ukulele for a little while there. It only has 4 strings, but it has a nice playability to it because it's easy to navigate the fretboard. The strings are easy to press. If you haven't been playing in a while as well, your hands will get weaker. So it might be a good place to start. But it will give me the versatility of a guitar with the playability of a ukulele. And it's not very expensive. It wouldn't be as expensive as a guitar, so it might be a good place to start. Because I would hope to go back busking. The reason I would go back busking is mainly because of the enjoyment, but secondarily, because I would need the increase in money coming in. Because what the government are giving us now just isn't enough. It's just not. I mean, I have a pending HAP application. They've told me that I'm eligible for HAP. I'm just looking to get it signed and all that kind of stuff worked through. And everybody's willing to make that happen, so that's good. But I'd like to busk so that I can afford my ministry. You know, because with the ministry there's travel here and there, and actually the busking would be part of the ministry. So busking would top me up. And the thing about busking is a way of communicating a message, but it's also a way of contributing to the society. So you're genuinely, as a busker, you're genuinely working. It's not easy. If you've ever tried to busk, it's work. And because I've a number of injuries at the moment, an injured thumb being one of them, guitar would be sort of a nice light way to rehabilitate the thumb. The thumb. It would be a nice way to rehabilitate it, to get those finer movements. Because I can do this, I can press like this, but it's if I take a pencil, for example, and I try to write, that's when I get pains, because I'm using the thumb in small circles, and that's where the pain tends to be. I don't know what that might tell somebody who understands the anatomy of the thumb, but it's those circular movements. Like, it is improving. Obviously I'm doing something similar to it now. It's certainly improving. Like, I wasn't able to do that when I first injured it. That motion, why would I be doing that? Actually, that's the movement you have to do to get toilet paper from one of those machines that dispenses it. And that's where I noticed the pain doing that movement. But so that's similar, obviously, to holding a pencil. So I know, like, if I start sketching again and doing some artwork, which would be another good thing for me to do, because I don't need to be very physically strong to do it. I don't need to be very physically strong to play music either. I do have to have some hand strength, so that'd be good to get back into that, to strengthen up my hands. But it would also be a good way to retrain my voice and guitar playing and that sort of thing, and because it'd be rusty, you know, use it or lose it. So it's something that it's not really age dependent. Like, you can see buskers out there and they're in their 60s, you know. So there's something beautiful about busking, because it sort of enriches the environment. And a while back, what I was doing was I was traveling from place to place with my guitar, and what I had done was I had taken songs that were cover songs from mainstream charts, songs I would have even played in pubs and clubs and hotels and at weddings. And what I did was I reworded the songs. So I'll give you an example. Oh pirates, sieste rabbi, sold I to the merchant ship, minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit. Now, it goes to the chorus, it goes, these songs of freedom, you're all I ever have, redemptive son. So what I've done is I've reworded the songs so that I'm keeping my voice down. I'm more speaking than singing at the moment. But if you can imagine that all the songs are reworded in a way that communicates the gospel message, but at the same time it presents the gospel in a format that people are used to listening to. So there's no sort of barrier to entry because of a style of music that somebody isn't used to hearing. But the songs, like when you think about redemption song, it's like it's there, like it's redemption, so like that's what the gospel is. It's all about redemption. So you're all I ever had, so I speak about the redemptive son instead of music being your redemption or the world being your redemption, or people will often point to things as their redemption. Well, I'm pointing to the Lord Jesus as my redemption. So I've reworded the songs so to do, and many different songs. So a full set of songs. Ain't no sunshine when he's gone, only darkness there to stay. Boom, boom, boom. Ain't no sunshine when he's gone, this house just ain't no home. Anytime Yahweh's away. So that kind of thing. There's a song that people are used to hearing. There's a very well-known popular song. Rewording it with the gospel, communicating a message to people. There's no joy without the Lord. There's no joy in the absence of Yahweh, because he is joy. And that's what I did for a long time. I was doing that. And I was earning enough money to supplement where I needed to supplement. And, I think when you can do something like that, you won't do it full time. Like you won't busk full time. You wouldn't be doing 8 hours a day. Like you might do 2-3 hours a day at a push, because your voice will get tired. Your hands will get tired, especially as you're getting older, especially as you haven't done it in a while and you lost conditioning. So it'll be something you'd have to slowly reintroduce yourself to. But the thing about busking, and this is something that I touched on before, it's interesting me because, sorry for that, but it's just, it's something that I care about. I do care about busking, I do care about music, I do care about singing. And I think busking is very important to the culture, to the, the leaven of society. Can you imagine a street that had no music in it ever, no live music, no busker, even the guy that's just starting out and can't really play the guitar well? Can you imagine a street with that? The guy who's just learning to sing and he's just getting his confidence and his first day out busking and he's terrified. I was there myself. So, but that's so enriching because people can empathize with that, and people can support that young man then and encourage him and bring him along. And actually years ago, the society would, at least to my knowledge, obviously I wasn't alive then, but based on what I've read or I don't know why it's in my mind, but it's there, that they would have given artists sort of a key to the city, sort of, Renaissance time. Like they would have given encouragement to artists because they knew art was such a hard thing to embark upon as a career, to make, to feed your family, but that art was so integral and so important to, and good quality art, was so integral to the society. Now we're getting a sort of a spawning of, virtuosos compared to what we were back then. Like you're getting young men who are far more advanced than we were at their age because they've more exposure to more platforms where they can learn from, whereas we were just learning from each other, or, from somebody's dad who was a musician or something like that. We weren't actually learning from a teacher. We couldn't afford it. And so, because I think there was a recession in the 80s when we would have been coming of age. So very few people would have been able to afford lessons from young, unless they were born into a family, of course, that was a family of musicians. But even then, that's not a guarantee that they're going to have time to teach you. So we just picked up whatever we picked up, and a lot of it was bad habits. And, so as a musician, I think if you're sort of blessed as well if you start off on piano, because piano is like, music theory laid out right in front of you. What I mean by that is music theory is based on piano, so it's not based on guitar. So it'd be much more easy to commit the structures of music to memory, visually speaking, when the instrument you're playing is guitar, because the music theory, at least written music theory, is based on piano. So it's much more easy to commit it to memory, because it's right out in front of you. As I said, it's all the keys are out there, and so you're looking at it the whole time you're playing. You're looking at it, and it's there in your mind until you don't have to look at it anymore. That means you have the structures of music, integrated into your mind's eye. Now you can see the ebony and the ivory keys and all the structures there and all the chord positions, and because it's your own hand. You know it like the back of your hand. So when you're playing guitar, it's very different, because the guitar is sort of built and designed in a way and has a tuning in a way to cater for the angle of the hand and the voicings of the chords, to keep them close enough together so you can play enough notes to have a triad, or a seventh or whatever. So it's built to suit the hand at that angle, so that you can play enough chords, and it's tuned as well so that you can play maybe a G chord but have G sounding twice and things of that nature. So you'd have the octave of G or something to make it sound fuller. So that's the way the guitar is tuned. So, but the guitar doesn't really have the same marriage with music theory as the piano does. So some lads would start on piano and then they'd hit the ground running with guitar, but some lads would start on guitar, and because they start on guitar, they would struggle with the music theory then. So anyway, but you're at an advantage. So I'd recommend, even if you want to learn guitar, to learn piano along with it, even though it's not something I've done. I would recommend it. So, but anyway, I digressed a little bit. So I was just talking about how integral I think that live music on the streets is to the society. How important it is, but it's also important what people are saying. Because it's one thing to play a song that sounds nice. That's only one aspect of the artistry. What's being said? Because I used to play songs in the pubs, and I wasn't really registering with me what I was playing, which was a little bit shallow on my part. But I was more about the engaging with the people and the energy and the buzz and the joy of singing, and I wasn't really too kind of bogged down in what the message that was being communicated. But as I grow, as I mature as a man, I'm realizing that there are layers of communication in these songs, because they're crafted in a way to communicate a message, deliberately to communicate a message that is often multifaceted. It's not just, this happens to be a story about me. It's, whoever writes it sort of, happens to be a story about my life. Often there's something behind that, and that's why that person is so famous, because they're communicating a narrative or a rhetoric that somebody who would be a magnate within the record industry has given them a career on the basis that they would promise to promote the rhetoric and narrative of those who have funded them. And so I think it's refreshing when you get some songs that and recognize with different lyrics attached. Of course, it's creative freedom. You wouldn't sell records with them because it'd be copyright infringement. But but it's interesting to put new lyrics on top of songs that are existing. And I found it good because people would recognize the song in terms of the tune, the melody, and the music, and sometimes it might go over their head what I was singing actually, and that it differed from the original lyrical content, but still the message was being communicated to them. So still the gospel was being communicated in the music, which I found enriching as a musician. So I was able to play songs that I knew and sing lyrics along with that music that would communicate the gospel message. So I found that quite powerful. And I was writing songs as well that were, gospel songs communicating that message. And I'd like to get back into it. So that's probably on the cards for me, because I think it would be a good way of making that few quid. It's not a job, it's not employment as such, but there's an interesting thing there with busking, because busking is considered a gift. The contribution that somebody gives you when you're busking on the street, because you're not asking for money, it's considered a gift, and a gift isn't taxable. But also, because you're not guaranteed money or much money when you go busking, it wouldn't be reasonable for the government to think it employment, because some days it can be as little as a £5, other days it could be as much as 50. So it's hit and miss, and for that reason it can't be really considered rather as an occupation. And now you have people up in Dublin and they have to book places. It just goes to show how many young musicians, how many young talented musicians with lots of potential are starting to show up to busk. And they have a system in place there so that everybody sort of gets a go, and you have to get in a queue to get a spot, and you can only be there for so long so that it rotates and somebody's not monopolising the space or hogging the space. And so I think that's a fair enough system, especially in the busier cities. I'm not sure why they'd tax people or why they'd ask people to pay for the spot when they're not actually intruding in any way. Like, they're not actually requiring any assistance. It's not costing anybody for them to be there, so why would they have to pay for it? Like, there are no services required of the council because they're there. So why are they having to pay for the space? I can understand the organizational side of things, but why the monetary side of things? Why are they taxing these young people? How can you tax somebody when they're not actually classified as earning money from it? Because it's a gift. Which leads me to a question. When, as it happens, and it is happening, they are attempting to remove cash from society. They want it to go digital. It's all about your phone and your app and your card and your online banking and your electronic transfers. And cash now, even you go into Tesco now and you're leaving and it says coins in, spending money out. Why are coins not spending money? So it's all psychological. Like, it's all, give us your coins because they're no longer spending money. Coins in, spending money out. Are coins not spending money? That's what one could deduce, of course. So they're obviously psychologically trying to ingrain it in the people that they don't use the currency anymore, that they rather go online and all of that. So many people don't even have cash. They don't even use cash in many cases. So that means that somebody who might put money into your basket as a busker won't have the coin to do it. So that leaves a situation where the busker has to put out some form of electronic device which enables them to receive payment, which now it's not exactly the same as putting out your guitar case, is it? Especially when many times there's a preset amount. So now you're asking for €2 when somebody taps their card on your device when you're busking. So you've set a price now. It's not exactly a gift. It still could be classified as a gift because the person has decided to give it to you. And it's not technically an exchange of services because there's no incumbency upon you to do what you're doing and there's no contract in place requiring you to do it. But at the same time, now you're putting out a device to ask for a specific amount of money. I think there should be some kind of app or algorithm developed that still allows people to select how much money they'd give you. Because then it could be just considered putting out your guitar case. But it would be a Busker's app, which would be an app version of a Busker's guitar case that doesn't ask for €1 or €2. It allows you to put whatever you want into the Busker's case. So you decide the amount. I don't know how functionally that would work, but obviously it has to be such that the person can continue playing the guitar as it's happening, as the other person is putting money into the guitar case. But it's interesting how it's there's something lost by it because, the child who isn't fully confident yet, whose mammy has told them to go over and put 25 cents into your guitar case. And they toddle over and they're a little bit reluctant to get too close to you and they're staring at you to see what you're going to do next, and then they go over a little bit close to the case and then they get close and then they throw the money and run away to their mammy. That's going to be lost. There's going to be a certain degree or level of that interaction that's going to be lost by way of removal of coins, of money. So you think about that. That's one part of busking that's very beautiful, that a child will approach an artist and put money in their case. And it's very encouraging to the artist. I don't think you realise how encouraging it is to somebody who's standing out there, maybe in the cold, who's playing for 30 minutes and lots of people have walked by, to see a little child come over and, edge their way towards the case and throw in the 50 cent. And you get different types of children coming over. One is very starey, fixed on what you're doing. And then the other one comes over and is just looking at the case because their brother's sent over to put the money in as well. They both have 20p to put in. And so they're watching their big brother and he's coming over and he's only maybe 9 or 10. He put the money in, then the little one looked at him, and because he ran off, they throw it in really quickly and chase after him. So there's all that level of busking that will be lost by way of removal of coins. So you have to think, how is this actually functionally going to affect society? The removal of cash. Well, how are you going to give the man who needs a cup of tea in winter enough coin to go and get a cup of tea? Somebody say, well, you can go and buy him the cup of tea. You can, assuming you have the time. Or what if he needs the money but for something else? That aspect is going to be hard. But also, like when they start saying, oh, you can't give people, food to people on the street, what's to stop them doing that? They've already started doing that in Dublin, where they're saying, oh no, you can't give food to people, health and safety. Oh, health and safety, let them starve to death. Is that health and safety? Let them become malnourished. Does that fit into your health and safety? Instead of saying, look, we will support charitable groups to get the necessary hazard analysis, critical control points courses done so that they can actually be legitimately allowed to give food out to people on the street. And that's open to anybody. Anybody can do a health and safety course online. Hazard analysis, critical control points. It's controlling and taking note of the temperatures of food to avoid food poisoning, cross-contamination, etc. It's not very complicated. You can do it online and it'll put you in a position where you'll know what you're doing. How long food has once you take it out of the fridge, etc., etc., etc. Perishables have a shorter shelf life. But what's stopping these charities bringing out an ice box and keeping the food refrigerated? Nothing. They'd know to do that if they knew their HACCP. So there are lots of things that the removal of money is going to affect. The removal of cash money is going to affect. And it'd just be, be important to make people aware of how it's going to affect a charitable effort. I know the Bible says that you shouldn't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing in terms of charity, in terms of when you go to help somebody. But what if the lack of cash money removes your ability, or regulation attempts to remove your ability to help others? Because remember, the devil is against what God has commanded. So he wants to remove your ability to functionally go out and obey God's commands. Do you see? So the removal of cash money removes the ability to be charitable, benevolent, and philanthropical towards your neighbour, towards your fellow man. Just the removal of cash money has a greater impact on the society than you might think. And it all feeds into Satan's building of structures that are against what God has commanded. So, busking, where's it going? Where's it headed if they try to remove cash? I've already seen buskers up in Dublin. I won't mention their names, but they're busking up in Dublin. Young lady, and she had out a device, and people were able to tap the device to make a contribution, to give a gift for the song. Give a gift to the young lady. Well, if they're able to give the gift for the music, is she allowed to set a price? And how does that work? How does that affect the nature of a gift? Because gifts aren't dictated. Like somebody puts out the hat, somebody puts out the case for the guitar. But when you start asking for €2, what if they only had one? Now the busker's missing out. Now the busker's not able to avail of lesser gifts because they're asking for €2. Because that's how the app functions. But if it was determined by the one giving the contribution how much they were going to tap for, that would be different, wouldn't it? It would still be a gift, the amount decided upon by the person tapping. If they wanted to tap €5, they could. If they wanted to tap 2 or 3, it might lead to people tapping larger amounts of money for the buskers. That might be the case. The point I'm making is, I think the removal of the ability to choose how much you're giving means that it's sort of, I don't know if it's straddling the fence between a gift and a set payment, a set fee. I just think they have to be careful with that so that they don't change the nature of busking and make it something that's actually taxable, because I think that would be detrimental to what busking is there to do and why buskers do it. They do it because music is so hard to earn a living in that you need something to top up your money so that you can have enough to live off. Because playing music alone has a cost. Guitar strings are expensive. They can cost €12 upwards, maybe €8 upwards. Good set, 12 to €20, 15, €20. And you can break strings quite regularly, especially when you're out in the elements. Especially in Ireland, your strings can deteriorate, and you could need a string, so you have to have a spare set with you. So you have to have 2 sets at a time. So there you're up into €30 before you go out and play a song. Then you have to get your plectrums, which can be €1 a piece. You can lose them. You have to top them up, and then you have the cost of your guitar, you have the cost of your case, you have the cost. Then you have to earn that amount before you start earning, before you start seeing the benefit of playing music. So there are costs to learning your craft, whatever the craft, of course. But music is notoriously difficult to make a living from. Any form of art, really. So that's why people were so supportive of the arts in this manner, giving gifts, because they appreciate that it's so difficult, and they want to see the music in the society because they appreciate how it enriches life and the society, of course. So they would make that contribution to keep the musician in a position where they can keep body and soul together, and pay the costs of actually just being a musician and keeping your instrument playable. So that's the story. Just on that, and often I just started talking about something and I go off talking about something else, but it's just the nature of how things tie in, and how things have a knock-on effect to impact another area. And then you start thinking about that, and how everything ties into everything else, one way or another. That's the nature of society. That's the nature of human life. It's the nature of existence. You can't behave in a manner that's not going to affect your neighbour, because the way you behave affects the society. That's why they used to have a barrier called the prison that would deter people. They still have a prison, but it doesn't function in how it should. So they had the prison there to deter people from doing things that would negatively affect other people in society, or harmfully affect them. Well, now the governments are implementing protocols, procedures and regulations that are doing the most harm. And that's because the devil is behind them, encouraging them and financially enabling them, giving them the power to start rolling out infrastructures within the society that they're then training people to accept in the media. So that as they're training people to accept their infrastructures, they're building their infrastructures. And while they're trying to compromise people, they keep them ignorant of their rights. I mean, the full spectrum of their rights and the full implications of having that right. They keep them ignorant of that, so that they don't even know they're being robbed before it's too late. Because they've died, and now their children are growing up in a world where their rights have been largely diminished, even though they're still telling them they have them. If I have the right to preach 1 day a week, I should have the right to preach 7 days a week. If I have the right to preach 1 hour, I should have the right to preach 10 in a row. Correct? Yeah, but it's only when you actually go about engaging and utilising and using the full spectrum of your rights to the full degree that you see who would come against you for so doing. And that's actually the government, the guards, conspiring with local businesses to break the law. And politicians trying to give them access to a mob in the civil courts to try and accuse people of behaving in an antisocial manner if they go out and engage the full spectrum of their rights. If their opinions are adverse to the general narrative and rhetoric that the devil is using government and media to implement and roll out. The government, the big business, the big banking, all the big corporates. And all he's been working at doing is reducing the people that have the pull to actually make change, because they have the bank, they have the big money. That's what he's been doing. That's why he's been centralizing everything, so he can just roll things out as he wants, when he wants, almost immediately, with immediate effect. because everything's just a carbon copy of everything else. It's just like a franchise. So you just build one system that you can control, and then you replicate that system all around the world. So that when you give an order in one city, it's affected in all the cities in the same way, because they're all structured the same. It might infrastructurally vary or culturally vary to some extent or degree, but ultimately the idea is to pretend to house the culture in some kind of Fisher-Price reductive and diminished way, like sort of, Tex-Mex food is to the authentic Mexican cuisine. So they've just sort of made it palatable to the place, not completely abandoning the origin or tradition of that place. So to avoid people getting their freckles up and their back up and resisting the change, but just kind of, tipping the cap to your culture and your traditions and your ancestry, but at the same time rolling out the global takeover of big corporations. So that there's this sort of a franchise system now, so that each town of the world is just like, a little franchise, like Deals has a Deals in Wexford and a Deals in Enniscorthy and a Deals in Dublin. Well, now Dublin and Enniscorthy and Wexford and Gorey all have the same sorts of shops. They all operate in the same sorts of ways, even though they're different towns with different infrastructures and different traditions and ancestries. And the same with countries now. You go to different countries, they have the same structures. It's like a franchise of another place. You go to Cherbourg in France. Well, it's almost identical to a big town in Ireland now. Very little difference. The language, yeah, but the ancestry, yeah, but now the big corporates have taken over all of that, and they're implementing this reduced sort of human existence where man is totally dependent upon these big corporations. And when these big corporations say no, man says please. So that man is acquiescing, man is giving way to these big corporations simply to cater for his flesh and to have the basic requirements of living, of life met. Globalization. There's no better way of describing it really, to make it easily understood. It's just like a carbon copy system where they put similar structures in all the towns and cities of the world, so that all they have to do if they want to make a change or alter the situation, they do it all at the same time all across the world where they have access to. We're making this change and then it's rolled out all throughout the world. We're making this change, then it's rolled out through all the world. How can they do that? Big corporations. Like what? Tesco. Things like Tesco. So Tesco are being used now to train the behaviours of the people. What do I mean? Think of the Tesco Clubcard. It used to be a loyalty card system. It used to be when you were returning to a shop, they would recognise that you've been coming back here for 6 months and you've accumulated a little amount of points when, as you were shopping and as you paid your bill, a few points were put on your club card. This is where somebody might say, they still do that. Yes, they do, but listen on. Then loyalty points were given, but it was a recognition, and this is the point, listen, it was a recognition of return business. Now, you can come through the door, pick up a club card or download the app, and you get things for a third of the price. Where somebody who might be going to Tesco for 10 years before you doesn't have the club card and therefore pays 3 times the amount as you. So where's the recognition of return trade in that? It's not about that. Well, what's it about then? Is it about giving people something for a third of the price? Hardly. That wouldn't be good for Tesco. No, but what would be good for Tesco is to get more people in the shop. But that hasn't done that. What it has done is alienate those who don't want their club card. Because all Tesco have to do is keep being Tesco. keep providing food and people will show up to buy food. We have to buy food. So what's it really about? It's not about getting people through the door of Tesco. It's about getting the people who are in Tesco to submit that to the idea that if they don't take the club card, they're going to be penalised monetarily. It's a preparation system. It's actually a penalty system. It's not a credit system. It's a system of penalisation. Because, I'll give you an example. I was buying punnets of oranges from Tesco, 49¢. And there was sort of a little setup there, a little table or a little display where like types of fruits and roots and, veggies and all sorts of things would be sold there, and there'd be a lot of them there. So it'd be punnets of oranges and there'd be lots of them stacked there. I'm sure you've seen it if you've been to Tesco, and it'll be like oranges that don't tend to sell well as other oranges. So they would have a more accessible price to those who were nearer the poverty line. So that would tend to get those people to buy those oranges because they couldn't afford the better oranges, the easy peelers or whatever it was, the big juicy sweet ones. They couldn't afford them, so they'd get the 49 ones that were stuffed with pesticides and had very little flavour or were just really bitter. And that would be 49¢ for you. Well, I'll have one of those, the 49¢ punnet, because that's all I can afford this week. So I'd grab a 49¢ punnet of oranges. 2 months later, what shows up? The punnet of oranges that I was getting before, exact same punnet of oranges, now it said 49€ with Clubcard price. And I thought, that was 49€ before they said anything about a Clubcard. Now it's 109 if I don't have a Clubcard. For those oranges? They're not even good oranges. That's why they were 49€ in the first place. You were just trying to get me used to buying them for 49€, so that when you said it was 49€ with the Clubcard, I would take the Clubcard. You were manipulating me to take the Clubcard, saying that if I don't take the Clubcard, you're going to charge me €1.09. That's not a credit system. That's not a reward system. I was already getting the oranges for 49€. That's a penalty system. That's a system of penalisation. You're now discriminating against people who don't take the Clubcard. Why? Why are you penalising people who don't take the Clubcard? Flashy lights. Why? Why? By the way, an ambulance just went up the wrong way up that street and turned there. Go back up. No siren on, just flashy lights. Interesting. So, what's happening? Am I getting my flashy lights for raising the alarm? So, if you're getting something for a set price, then it says you can get it for the same price if you do something I want you to do. But if you don't do something I want you to do, I'm going to penalise you monetarily for it. This is against the laws of Ireland, because they're not allowed to create subcategories of people, and they have done so with the Clubcard. You cannot favour people, you cannot endow people monetarily for no good reason other than they identify with you. And previously, yes, it is reasonable to give people some benefit for return trade. That's reasonable to acknowledge people's return trade, return custom. They shouldn't even have to take a card for that to be acknowledged. But if you're now saying if you don't take the card, we're going to charge you more than twice what we were charging you, more than double what we were charging you. €1.09 is more than double 49€. But this is what they felt confident enough to do. Breaking the laws of our land. And this is how this is why they set up these structures. Where else are you going to go? You've only limited options. Aldi, Dunn's, Centra, Tesco. You've limited options. These are big corporate entities that have franchises in different towns and some of them in different countries. Aldi, for example. So if Tesco start playing up, if they start breaking the laws of Ireland, where else are they breaking them? It is against the law to penalise somebody monetarily for not taking a club card, when the club card itself doesn't actually add any real value or doesn't have the power to deduce any value from the item being purchased. So it's nothing more than a division. Because what happens when everybody joins the club? What's the point of having the card? If the only reason you're benefiting is because you're on the club and others aren't. Have you considered that the club card price is the true price, and the price that people are paying without the club card is an increased price? Not that the price they're paying without the club card is the normal price and the price people are paying with the club card is a reduced price. Because then Tesco would be losing money for having more people. When you consider that sometimes it's up to a third, they would have to get 3 people through the door on the club card system to benefit in any way from making a sale. If their profit margins are acceptable and compliant with reasonableness in business and prices representing the cost of production fairly and equally. Here they must have these big massive profit margins to be able to give something for a third of the price for an extended period of time. And it's not only their own produce, which is interesting, because if it was Tesco produce, you'd say, well, maybe Tesco are willing to take the hit on this. Who's taking the hit when they make something that isn't their own brand a third of the price? What does that tell you? How little must Tesco be paying the people whose products they sell if they can afford to reduce it to a third of the price? What sort of extortion is going on in there? And here they are monetarily penalising people for not having a piece of plastic, even though that person might be returning to Tesco for over 10 years. I'm going to this Tesco here in Wexford on a daily basis, probably about 5 years now, 4 or 5 years. Daily. Yet, I don't have a club card. And they're trying to charge me 2 and 3 times what they're charging other people who may have just gotten the club card last week. And they might be a new customer to Tesco. Somebody might say, well, why don't you just get the club card then? Because I don't want to. Why should I have to get a fair price for an item that I'm buying? No, other people are getting a reduced price, somebody might say. Well, that's discrimination. That's discrimination. You're discriminating against your return customers simply because they don't have a card. That doesn't sound like you're trying to keep customers. It sounds like your system, the monopoly you have, is being used by big corporate entities and those who run them to train the behavior of people, to say, psychologically attack the people and say, if you don't take the card, we're going to monetarily penalize you. You're going to pay if you don't join the club. And the Bible talks about there coming a time when you won't be able to buy or sell if you don't take the mark of the beast. So it makes sense that the devil wants to train you to think, if I don't do what big corporate says, I get penalized. The Bible says that there will come a time where if you don't take the mark of the beast, you won't be able to buy or sell. You won't even be able to buy something in the shop. So of course the devil has to introduce it to a lesser extent first, and that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to introduce the idea into your psychology that if you don't take something that they tell you to take, to be part of a group, if you don't take it, that you're going to be penalized for not taking it. Now it's not small. To be paying 3 times the price that somebody else would be paying simply for not joining the club. Well, first of all, they're breaking the law. Big time. Tesco are breaking the laws of Ireland, because you're not allowed to create subgroups in your clientele and endow one over the other. It's against the law. So Tesco are way out of line. I've been saying this for a while. They're way out of line. They're breaking the laws of Ireland. And they have to comply with the laws of Ireland. You see? So they're breaking the laws. I can say that confidently. Because you're not allowed to create subgroups and discriminate against people and monetarily penalise them or endow anybody over another group of people. Either before the law or in business. That's discrimination. And Tesco are discriminating now against those who don't have their card, who haven't said, we'll join your club. And that's psychological conditioning. Because the devil wants to get you ready for accepting the mark of the beast. Or he'll say you won't be able to buy or sell. And the Bible says that. It says there will come a time where you won't be able to buy or sell if you don't take the mark of the beast. They're getting you ready for that. They're trying to. So let it be exposed. So do you see how these systems that they're implementing have a knock-on effect? There's an implication that results of, or there's something implied by that. There's something implied by the club card. There's something implied by the removal of cash that you might think, and they always try to sell it to you as being more convenient or as being a benefit. So a benefit or a convenience, and they sell it to you as that, but really you have to stop for a moment and think, what's this going to change? What's this going to impact? What's this going to affect? And what would be the nefarious reason for doing this? Because there's always a nefarious reason for doing it, even though they would pretend there's not, because the ones who run the world are evil. And they're trying to systematically take over the systems of the world. And you might think that's sounds like something out of Pinky and the Brain and you must be paranoid, but they mock by making cartoons like Pinky and the Brain. They're mockers. And they have been trying to take over the world for many, many millennia, for thousands of years. That's been their drive. These are Freemasons. These are the servants of Satan. They're the synagogue of the devil, synagogue of Satan. Those who say they are Jews and they're not, but are a synagogue of Satan, the Bible says. So, the club card system in Tesco has been distorted to an extent and a degree that is against the laws of Ireland. They're now penalising people for not having the club card. That's a breach. And they know it is. But they're flexing their muscles. We're Tesco. Do whatever we want. We've been told to by Satan, so we better do it. And we're Tesco's. What are you going to do, one little man? But you see, we're not appealing to them. We're exposing their evil behaviour. There's a difference. I'm not knocking on Mr. Tesco's door saying, please change what you're doing. That would be futile. You might as well be talking to the wall. The point I'm making, and that's not a character slide on Mr. Tesco. What I'm saying is, there are hands in his pocket. He's taking orders. So the point is that we appeal to the God of heaven, because God is the one instituting all powers on the earth, and it is through faithful men like myself who believe in Jesus, that God can effect change. Is it because we go in and talk to Mr. Tesco and say, this is a really bad idea for all of the aforementioned reasons? Is he going to suddenly say, oh yeah, I didn't think about that? No, these are intelligent people. They know what they're doing. So we appeal to the God of heaven because God can make change through faithful men. Blessings in Jesus' name. So this video has touched on a number of things. It's touched on how the removal of cash money will alter how people interact. It already has. Even though they haven't fully removed cash money yet, they've effectively removed it by making the use of electronic devices seem more attractive and convenient. And monetarily penalising you for not doing what they want you to do. Even the banks do it now in the way they charge you for transactions that are requiring an interaction or a staffing, because they want to remove staff. They don't want you to think that you have any say in how they operate. But they don't want you to think that they've fully removed it either. So there's an illusion of access to make change, but it doesn't actually result in change. The only one who can change this world is God Almighty to good effect. They'll only ever seek to change it to negative effect. But they'll always do so by claiming the alteration or the change or the adaptation or the development that they're making is convenient and good for you. They'll appeal to your creature comforts, to your fallen nature, to your evil urges, and make you feel more comfortable to sin because they want to usher you into hell, separate you from God. So they want to fearmonger you. Oh, you better take the Clubcard or you're going to be paying 3 times the price for your cornflakes. But that's not how they say it, is it? Get your Clubcard now and pay only 1/3 of the price for the da-da-da-da-da. No, really what they're saying is, if you don't take the Clubcard, we're going to penalise you. Psychological warfare. They're trying to conquer your mind. They're trying to climb on top of your mind and alter your behaviour and make you scared of them for not complying with what they say or even suggest. They're not telling you have to take the Clubcard yet. They're monetarily penalising you for not taking it though. And this is a breach of our laws. It's a hideous breach of them. It's a very obvious breach of our laws. And it shouldn't be tolerated. But they're tolerating it because they're corrupt. And because the devil has his hand in their pocket, so to speak. So come to the Lord Jesus today. Have faith. Continue as I am myself, exposing the unfruitful works of darkness for the sake of our children. Blessings.